I started accidentally there, but I'm just going to go with it. Am I? Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy. Very quick. I'm tired. It's late. I've got work tomorrow. But, just come back from the cinema. I am going to have to adjust this. Hang on. There's the big hand. Yeah, slightly better. I'm just back from the cinema. I went to see a new film called Misbehaviour. This is based on a true story, and it is set around the Miss World pageant of 1970, which took place in London. If you're not familiar with Miss World, I mean, I'm sure you are, but it was obviously a global beauty pageant where each country would pick their winner, and then the winners would all go to the overall the big final, big finale, and they would be judged on. They would have a round of wearing traditional dress, and then there was evening gowns, and there was swimwear, and sorry, seatbelt. So yeah, that was Miss World, 1970. The newly established or sort of fledgling women's liberation movement decided they were going to boycott the Miss World pageant because they were fed up of women being judged on how they looked, about not having equal rights, and so on and so forth. So this all happened all the way back in, well, it's 50 years ago now, isn't it? 1970. That doesn't sound right. And I was unsure about whether it's at a jaunty angle, isn't it? I was unsure about whether or not I was going to bother seeing it. But then I heard Mark Kermode talking about it, and he was quite positive, and I thought, I'll go along and give it a bash. Did I enjoy it? It's always a question I ask myself. Yes, I did. It passed a couple of hours. I think if I have beef with it, which I do, it was a bit broad. I think there was more in it that they could have dug into. But the story centres mainly around the character, or sorry, not a character because they're real people. A woman called Sally Hawkins, played by Keira Knightley. I'm not her biggest fan. I think she's a bit wooden. But she was perfectly fine for this role. So she is a mature student. She's trying to get a degree in history. She's also raising her young daughter. She's divorced from the dad and living with her partner, which is obviously quite modern for back then, or quite frowned upon. And she meets at a presentation, I suppose, about women's rights and so on. She meets Jessie Buckley's character, Joe Robinson, who is part of sort of a slightly more anarchic women's group. I have so much time for Jessie Buckley. I think she's absolutely wonderful. I saw her last year in Wild Rose, and that was when I had my moment that she was Irish Nancy from Andrew Lloyd Webber's I'd Do Anything programme. And she's just gone from strength to strength. She's incredibly watchable. She's got great screen presence, very good at accent, as it turns out, because she's got a bit of a northern twang in this one. So yeah, Sally meets Joe. Joe brings Sally into this sort of world of not anarchy, but they're trying to make a point. They're trying to make themselves heard. So Sally gets swept along and all of that. You've also got the story of the pageant itself being put on. The two sort of in charge of the pageant are Julia and Philip. Is it Philip Morley? The Morleys. Rhys Ifans plays. I'm really doubting whether or not his name was Philip. It was definitely Morley. Hopefully it was Philip. But basically, he's described, I think, by Keira Knightley at one point, or her character, as Mr. Miss World. So he created the pageant. And it's Rhys Ifans in that role, and he is having all the fun. Like, he is spot on in this. He's so funny. His wife, Julia Morley, who obviously is also behind the pageant and so on, and has been involved since it began, is played by Keely Hawes, who's very, very good. The focus within the competition, there's a handful of Miss World contestants that you sort of get to know a little bit about. You've got the fact that they not only have Miss South Africa, who's white, but they have Miss Africa South, who is black. This is very much, obviously, at the time when apartheid was going on in South Africa, and actually it's only when he's challenged by a member of the press, or no, sorry, a gentleman who's something to do with sort of abolishing apartheid, approaches Philip Morley and says, you know, how do you justify having only white South African candidates? At which point he says, well, actually, that's why you're wrong, because we've got a white and a black woman from South Africa this year. And then immediately tells one of his staff to get on the phone and get a black contestant, because they didn't actually have one. So it was bold for that reason in 1970 that they had two candidates representing South Africa. It's also the first year that Miss Grenada appears, and she is played by a beautiful British actress. I know I shouldn't comment on how they look, considering it's about like not objectifying women, but she really is stunning. And her name is, I've just literally checked how to pronounce it because I didn't want to get it wrong. The shortened version of her first name is Gugu, which I can do. Mbathra? Let's go with that. Apologies to her and anyone else if I've got it wrong. So she plays Miss Grenada, and it's a big deal for her because she's the first Miss Grenada to ever be in the Miss World pageant. So it's very much a film about change, about things moving forward. It makes you grateful that we don't perhaps talk about women in the same terms as we did then. Greg Kinnear, again, has a lot of fun playing Bob Hope. It's a very convincing performance. Obviously, they've done a bit of prosthetic work on around his nose to give him that distinctive Bob Hope schnoz. But yeah, he plays him very well. Some of the jokes that Bob Hope makes, or some of the ways in which he speaks to women, just makes me wince. Yeah, there are quite a few things where you think, oh dear me, but it was just the done thing. What made me sad a little bit was actually that, well, we might have come a long, long way in 50 years. We're still not there. They talk at the beginning, at the first sort of, not rally, but presentation from the woman who's setting up the women's liberation movement. She says, you know, we want equal pay and we want adequate childcare. And you just think, oh, we still don't have those things. So yeah, it's a bit broad, it's a bit sort of a little bit feminism by numbers, I think, but these are actors I should call them, playing real people who 50 years ago tried really hard to make a real difference. And that is the case for not only the activists and people like Sally and Joe, but it's the case for people like Miss Africa South and for Miss Grenada, because they were representing their countries. They were using Miss World as a platform to try and get a voice, which, you know, is an important thing. So performances were very good. I loved the 70s vibe, very authentic with the fashions and so on. It did make me laugh in places. It did, you know, like I say, make me flinch a little bit with some of the language towards the women. It's good. It's a couple of hours. It's entertaining. Like I say, great performances. It's a little bit, if it was a school report, could do better, but I did enjoy it. And now I'm going to go and enjoy my bed and enjoy some sleep. So thank you for watching. If you have, as ever, if you like the channel, give it a like, subscribe to it, and share it to other people who like films, or who like Geordies, or who like cars, or particularly people who like a combination of those three things. Okay, thanks. Good night all. Katie out.